Bandai Namco, 5 games in progress have been canceled due to new evaluation rules and longer dev cycles. We've decided to dispose of work in progress in accordance with our internal rules. Evaluation in the online games subject to the write-down this time were also disposed in accordance with these rules. Although Tekken 8, which has been launched, has been well received by fans, we expect it to contribute repeat sales in the next fiscal year. They're like, thank God for Tekken 8. But 5 games at Bandai Namco are canceled. That's a lot. This happened in the exact same day. It seems that Bandai Namco no longer is the IP holder of Elden Ring. It seems that FromSoft is now the solo IP holder of Elden Ring. FromSoft got investment from SIE and Tencent in August of 22 to help them self-publish. So something went down. The game wasn't like slowed down because it's taken like forever to make the DLC seemingly. No, there's been some crazy like legal battle that's going down behind the scenes in Japan. It isn't specifically bad. All it really is like, oh, so that's why it's been delayed so much. But Tencent also getting like a stake in it too is pretty, of course, Tencent's in there now. Pretty wild that this news and information dropped at the same time. Official Xbox podcast. Here we go, boys. It live. Let's figure this out.
Hello and welcome to the official Xbox podcast. I'm your host, Tina Amini, and we have a very special episode today. As you
Damn, these are the big heads. Matt Booty's there too.
Phil,
wow.
Sarah and Matt, welcome. And we're going to talk about some updates at Xbox. We want to talk about game exclusivity. We want to talk about Activision Blizzard now that they're part of our portfolio, how that might be an impact on Game Pass. And we want to talk about hardware too and how all of this fits into the strategy at Xbox. So where should we start, Phil?
Well, when we originally had planned for the show, starting back in December, I think we probably would have started with Activision Blizzard, maybe talked a little bit about the exclusivity with some of the news coming up, and then hardware. But we've had some unforeseen news that has come out. So let's just go and tackle the exclusivity question, because I know it's on the minds of a lot of people. We hear from the community, and that's an important input for us. So we made the decision that we're going to take 4 games to the other consoles, just 4 games.
All right.
Not a change to our kind of fundamental exclusive strategy. We're making these decisions for some specific reasons. We make every decision really with the long-term health of Xbox in mind. And long-term health of Xbox means a growing platform, our games performing.
4 games isn't like a long-term strategy change.
Creators. Reaching as many players as we can. We're always looking to learn as a leadership team and to grow. And we think this is an interesting
Killer
point
instinct,
in time
please.
for us to use what some of the other platforms have right now to help grow our franchises. So we're going to do that.
So these 4 titles, what are they? Can you say?
Redfall, and Redfall.
Those games, the teams that are building those games have announced plans that are not too far away.
Oh, no.
As we know, game teams put a lot of energy into their announcements with the partners.
You got to tell us what they are, dude.
I don't want to take anything away from those teams. So I won't be talking about the titles specifically, but I think when they come out, it'll make sense.
Can we say if either of those titles are Starfield or Indiana Jones?
They are not Starfield or Indiana Jones.
Well, what was the criteria in
Indiana Jones was rumored to be going multi-plat.
Let me start a little bit outside of that, and then I'll get to the 4 specific games that we're talking about right now. Because the fundamental decision driver for any decision that we make, anything we're going to talk about today, is the long-term health of Xbox. That we're running a growing platform that is reaching more players, that our games are having as much success as possible. And I do have a fundamental belief that
Xbox is already multi-platform, dude. Minecraft's on everything.
Exclusive games that are exclusive to one piece of hardware, are going to be a smaller and smaller part of the game industry. And that's not some great insight, because if you look at the last 10 years and what the biggest games are today, it's a natural place. Whether it's one console and PC, multiple consoles, mobile console and PC, you see big games landing on multiple platforms. And we want to be a great platform for creators that are trying to realize that potential. But now back to the specifics of the question on these four specific titles. We looked at games that are over a year old, So they've been on Xbox and PC for a while.
Interesting. So Sea of Thieves for
A couple
sure.
of the games are community-driven games.
Sea of
New
Thieves for
games,
sure.
like kind of first iterations of a franchise that have reached their full potential, I'd say, on Xbox and PC. There's always growth. Franchises that we obviously want to continue to invest in. Part of having the ability to continue to invest is that the businesses behind those franchises continue. We think it's important that these service-based games that have communities behind them, that they can have confidence that they're going to exist in the future. So 2 of them, kind of community-driven games that will end up on other platforms and give us the ability to continue to invest in them. We think that's great for the business and great for the communities, more players to play with. I'd say 2 of the other games are smaller games that were never really meant to be built as kind of platform exclusives and all the fanfare that goes around that. But games that our teams really wanted to go build, that we love supporting creative endeavors across
That's Hi-Fi Rush for sure,
of size.
Which is great.
And as they've realized their full potential on Xbox and PC, we see an opportunity to utilize the other platforms as a place to just drive more business value out of those games.
Hi-Fi Rush on the Switch or something like that? Let's do it.
In maybe future iterations of those, so sequels to those, or just other
I hope
games
one of the other
like
smaller
that
games is Killer Instinct or something, dude.
And when we don't damage Xbox and we can grow our business using what other platforms have and to help us with that, we're going to do that. And that's really the story behind these 4 games. And last thing I'll say, looking forward, I think there is an interesting story for us of introducing Xbox franchises to players on other platforms to get them more interested in Xbox. We think there's a good brand value.
So they're still in the hardware market.
4 games, no promise beyond that. So if you're on those other platforms and you see
this is not nearly as doom and gloomy as we thought it would be.
It's not, and we're going to learn.
So when you are thinking about the future and this concept of live service games, games that can benefit from bigger audiences, new audiences, how does that apply to future titles and how you're applying that criteria there?
Yeah, there's really no fundamental change to how we think about exclusivity. We just came out of Developer Direct, which was an awesome show where we showed great games that are coming to Xbox and PC and cloud, which really makes them accessible to hundreds of millions of people. So it's this kind of, we're really focused on a couple platforms and what's going to show up there. But our key of play the games you want with the people you want, anywhere you want, when everybody plays, we all win. These have been part of our strategy for years and will continue to be. Our focus is on how do we continue to grow the games industry by reaching more players in more places, and how do we grow Xbox as part of that. Xbox is a hardware platform, Xbox is a publisher of great games, and Xbox as a platform for the world's best creators.
And then knowing that, how do we think about our first-party games and Game Pass?
Yeah, well, to build on what Phil just said, one thing I would add, as you were talking about growth, is just that we've sort of seen this inversion over the last 5 years where it used to be that the platform was the biggest thing.
That's right.
And the games would sort of tuck in within the platform. Today, big games like a Roblox or a Fortnite could actually be bigger than any one platform. And that really has changed the way that we think about things. So in the midst of all that, I think we at First Party can come back to sort of some core
I have to give shout out to Matt Booty. He's the reason Killer Instinct even exists.
Platform. Second, all of our games will go into Game Pass on day 1. And third, we know that Game Pass will only be available on Xbox. So there's sort of starting points for us. As Phil mentioned, there are games today that you can play that only can be found on Xbox. And at the same time, we want to bring more of our games to more players. So we're going to continue to look at that. Kind of moving aside, though, from some of those and thinking more about what does it really mean for the player, to me, the 2 key things are cross-play and cross-save. Those things allow us to deliver on the promise of Xbox.
Those are good things.
Play with your friends where they are.
Those are very good things.
Play the games you want. So that is really only possible at a practical level when you know that your saves and
when your ecosystem's all in tune
across all those parts.
Yeah.
So not all of our games today are necessarily built to take advantage of that. There still will be some games that don't. As we bring more teams into the Xbox family, there's some catch up to do as we get there. But that cross-play, cross-save is like so fundamental to what we're doing, and I think is something that we as First Party get such a good benefit from being so close to the platform.
So, I mean, I'm going to pause this really quick. It's like somebody in the chat had a good point. Exclusivity is such like a tired old business thing. It's kind of true because what is the reason behind exclusivity? It's to push hardware. Why do you want to push hardware? So that you'll actually make money on selling hardware, right? And it works. But the thought process behind it is that we need to drive consoles because we're making sweet buck on consoles. The issue with that entire business decision is that unless you're Nintendo, almost all hardware, you're not making much money, dude. Like now you're trying to sell like an online ecosystem. Now like the whole point is that, oh, on Xbox you have a Game Pass, on PlayStation you have PlayStation Plus, on a Nintendo, even on Nintendo you have your own like service tied to this shit that's like a Netflix or a Disney Plus. Nintendo is the exemption because their hardware's dated as fuck. Their shit is obviously cheap and they're making money on their hardware, you know, most of the time. Or for a very short period of time, they're not making money. So exclusivity wise, it's kind of weird that it has stuck around for so long. And like they're saying, the industry has changed so much that they're essentially trying to build their own like Fortnite / Roblox sort of like ecosystem, their entire platform, which is exactly what Game Pass is. They're taking the approach of like more consumer friendly, when obviously Sony's winning the console wars like crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's one of the things, like you said, all of our games are always in Game Pass. And so I'm excited to announce, you know, with the coming together that we had with Activision Blizzard King, that Activision and Blizzard games are coming to Game Pass, starting with Diablo 4 on March 28th, which I'm super, super excited to share today.
That's cool.
And it's all part of our commitment to make the Xbox experience and the games that we build is widely
Still reason to have an
available
Xbox,
as
that's for
possible. So
sure.
now the 34 million Game Pass members can all enjoy the fantastic experience of Diablo 4.
Amazing. Can we come back to the point, Phil, you mentioned at the top, this isn't really a change in strategy for us. Can you recap for me how it isn't?
Yeah, and I thought both Matt and Sarah did a really nice job of talking about what we're doing on Xbox, where we're going. You know, if you take a platform feature like Xbox Play Anywhere, which has been a promise that we've made on our first-party games, that you can buy our game once.
Yeah, they're not increasing Game Pass users. They've even said they peaked.
We're the only platform that does this. That makes it possible.
They've been around like the 30s for a long time.
With your friends wherever they are, but to know that you actually have multiple entitlements to the games, I think that's a technology I would love to see applied to more platforms. But it is this view that people are going to play Xbox in multiple places, whether it's play the games you want with the people you want, anywhere you want, whether it's content, community, and cloud, whether it's when everybody plays, we all win. Like we've had different taglines, different strategy, kind of words that we've used.
That's the first Game Pass update in 2 years. It's up from 25 million. Oh God, I didn't know it's been that long.
Want to reach the most players.
Whoa.
Our investments in xCloud, our investments in franchises like Minecraft and now Call of Duty.
They're doing
and other
fine, dude.
franchises so that we learn how to build those. This has been a strategy.
Dude, if they're in the mid 30s, if they're like 34, 35 million, that's crazy. That's still a ton. Internal emails had them at like 30 a little while ago. Well, that's good because that goes beyond their expectations of Game Pass peaking, where they would say for the longest time that like we might have hit the market cap of people that would be interested in Game Pass. No, it looks like it consistently went up. And guess what? It's literally the best goddamn deal in the industry. It actually is. Especially if you bought like an Xbox Series S, which is cheap, and still produces good visuals. Like it is like mind-boggling that the majority of people are still buying into it and are getting like the word of mouth because it is truly great.
Strategy that we've been on for, I'd say, a decade. It's not about one device. It's not about games in service of a device, but rather the devices that people want to play on should be in service of making the games as big and popular as they possibly could be. Because really a healthy creator community on Xbox, a healthy creator community in gaming all up,
isn't the Switch the most sold console of all time? Nintendo's in their own. When Nintendo does well, they're in their own universe. This is pretty much about Sony versus
And my understanding, just
Sony versus
from
Microsoft.
listening and learning from you three over the past few weeks, just understanding what's happening with Xbox. is
Nintendo
that
always does their own
we
thing.
see
They don't give a
trends with
fuck.
player behavior where people are playing on multiple devices. That is the reality. And we have put some games out on multiple platforms before. So my understanding is that that's been good for players. How does that come back to the business with all of that in mind?
Yeah, as you said, we have shipped games on other platforms. In fact, realistically, if you look with the addition of Activision and Blizzard and ZeniMax, we're one of the largest game publishers on PlayStation. We're one of the largest publishers on the Nintendo Switch, especially when you put Minecraft into the equation as well. And now we're one of the largest publishers on mobile platforms as well. And that's not something that we want to back away from. We want to continue to be building great games that millions and millions of people can love, and that they can play those games where they want to go play. But we do understand the business success that Xbox has to have. Us as leaders in this business, the system today, the system that all companies that we...
So it was pretty clear, even from an outsider's perspective, that the last like 6 years of just make games for our Game Pass, right? Just go make Game Pass games has not been working out super great. And some things have come out and they're obviously good, but like a lot of projects got like doom and gloomed, and a lot of them, when they did turn up, were not that good either, and most of them have gotten delayed to holy hell. So this whole mentality over the past like 5 years of just throw money at the wall until it works does not work. And there's been some, not from these three individuals, but from all the micromanaging and business stuff that's happening with all of those separate teams and shit. There was clearly some stuff that was going down that was like, no, this is a creative industry. You can't just throw money at something until it functions, right? It doesn't work that way. And I think even though Xbox seemingly had all the money in the world to throw, they weren't getting the things that they needed. And now it was taking way, way, way too long for all that shit to come online.
Play video games from is a world of you got to be growing your business. Growth in an Xbox business is critical to the long-term health of Xbox. Many people know I've been on Xbox for over 20 years, and I want to make sure Xbox is in the best position for the next 20 years. That means healthy player community, healthy creator community, and healthy business. So when we look at opportunities to allow more people to play, more people engage, more people to buy, more people to subscribe, it's all about putting Xbox in the best position. And our hardware is a critical component of that. The absolute best experience somebody has on Xbox is hardware that your team builds and that people
Yeah, I'm
plan.
surprised they're still sticking with this.
We fully accepted that we're going to have Xbox players.
I'm surprised they're still sticking with the hardware. You know, they're not
So I
they're
think
not
a lot
leaving
of
it.
people think about 2023 as this incredible year for gaming, and in a lot of ways it was. There were some really amazing releases that I think we all enjoyed. But what were the signals behind the scenes that maybe indicated how we wanted to look at the future of Xbox and how we kind of keep up with the industry?
Yeah, such a good question. And I think it's, as people who care about the industry, which I assume is people who are watching this, it was an amazing year. Some great launches, some of the games that I think will stand the test of time and people will be talking about a decade from now.
But also some of the most
But
layoffs.
it's an industry that didn't really grow. And what happens when an industry doesn't grow? You end up with some job eliminations, which we had. We had even our own hard decisions to make about building a sustainable business for ourselves, but in no way were we alone in that. When you think about...
Yeah, and this is just this is just the problem with the way business operations work, is that if you break even, it's a massive failure, right? Like that's the issue with the way the majority of like America is, right? With a lot of the industry, especially in this country, if you did not post increases year over year, it essentially scares the shit out of a ton of investors. It scares the shit out of people that have money already, potential investors, money already invested. And suddenly they're like, oh, and they might start like, they start feeling the ground from under their feet like crumbling away, because everything's so fucking fickle that, you know, that's just the way our entire industry runs. So unless you're posting positives, they freak out. Which is stupid, which is just genuinely dumb, because obviously the whole entire business decisions of just throw money at all of these games until shit works was not the way to go. Clearly was where there needs to be reevaluations and shit like that. So,
healthy industry.
It's not exactly Phil's fault that it's that way, but it is that way.
Games on the platforms that they love. I want people who invest their careers in working here to feel like this is a place that they can be successful. And that really is down to being part of an industry that is growing. If you listen to Lisa Su, the AMD CEO, she'll say that AMD-powered consoles are likely to decline in 2024. I think there's an amazing set of games coming in 2024, but if we don't get to growing as an industry, the industry will struggle. And today there's really two choices on how do you grow the industry. Do you say, I have a fixed number of players, the players that we have today, and do I find new ways to monetize those players to get more money from the players that I have? Or do you think about how do I expand the business I have by finding new players and adding those to the base of players that already play? Our focus on
and that's not a bad like operation, right? You need to assume, and even as like a content creator, that has always been even my perspective, that you can't hold on to people forever, right? You just can't. People are going to lose interest. People are just going to eventually teeter out. You could try to squeeze them dry as much as you can, and you see a lot of companies do this where it's like, oh, well, we're not getting any new people, let's squeeze them dry type shit. You need new users. You need new people to come in and show interest and find ways that allow your goddamn product that does exist to be more appealing in some way. So, long story short, that's not a weird mentality. It's just because that's the way everything works. That's the way literally every operation, every business needs to function. That isn't like a requirement, especially an entertainment foundation. You have to find some way to engage people in the same operation, not like, getting completely out there. It's not like Xbox is going to go all of a sudden make Keurig machines or some shit. Who knows? Maybe they will. But they have to make this shit appealing for people that just don't give a fuck about this and make it seem like, oh, it's worth giving a fuck about.
For the last decade has really been on that latter point of how do we make sure Xbox is growing for our players, growing for our creators, so those people are finding success on our platform, which will grow the Xbox business and put Xbox in a position to be very strong for years and decades to come.
Matt, earlier you were talking about these growing gaming communities, how they're incredibly large, and
this is like, it's actually interesting to hear from Xbox regarding this stuff. I'm just interjecting throughout this all the time because I think this is fascinating as hell. Because Xbox business-wise is in the most fascinating space of all the game developers, where they're trying something actually unique in terms of getting an audience, and it's worked. It has grabbed people. Has it grabbed people enough? We don't know if it's been enough, because clearly, like, Sony has the majority of the market share in their system and their hardware and their IP. Nintendo is living in their own little universe, and Xbox is still sitting here like trying to recover from the absolute fucking disaster that was the Xbox One.
Comparable on such a different level when we think about console audiences. Like you mentioned Roblox, you mentioned Fortnite. So how are we're obviously thinking about our responsibility, our hardware responsibility is supporting the growth of gaming communities. How has that actually shown up for the players? Are there other games we can speak to from our portfolio?
Well, as Phil mentioned, two of the biggest ones for us, Call of Duty and Minecraft, they are driven just from the bottom up by the communities of people that play those games, which is so great. I think about it, for the player community, it comes down to where are the friends, where are the people you play with, and then equally important is where have you built up your library of games, right?
Somebody says the Series consoles are selling worse than the Xbox One. Right. So we talked about this recently with Tekken titles leading to Tekken 8's success, and also Street Fighter titles leading to Street Fighter 6's success, and why it could have been bigger. Hear me out. Series S and X are probably doing really good. You know what would have made them do way better is if Xbox One was actually good. Because what sets up the precedent of the next thing is completely based on the interpretation of what the users and the audience had before. Why did Xbox One sell okay? Like comparatively, compared to even these consoles, which are way better. Well, it did because Xbox 360 was a fucking banger. system was like the system for the longest time next to like, and it took PlayStation like a while to eventually catch up. 360 was amazing. They established a ton of trust from that era of Xbox. So they already had their audience. You created the Xbot audience from the Xbox 360 practically. So long story short, of course, Xbox One got the good graces of a lot of people, and then they lost those good graces during the Xbox One. People felt essentially betrayed by their goddamn system. And then now they had to like build it back up during that system's lifespan. And what do you have with this new systems? Well, it's shocking that it's selling as good as it is, but it's still not even as good as potential Xbox One sales, if that is true. It's only because the precedent was set up for them to like fail. And then they have to like fight through this shit, you know?
Right? Where have you invested? Where's that library? I think those two things probably are some of the biggest influences on where people choose to play and what devices they choose to play.
Yeah.
When we think about, on the other side, the developer side, just any game developer wants their game to find the biggest audience possible. That's just the nature of building a game. You want people to enjoy and
Which is why going third party makes more sense than ever.
We're in a unique position to deliver on that just because we are the platform. We build hardware, we've got a first party games group, and then we've got a system that ties that together, that brings together your friends, your progression, your achievements, all of that. And I think that's really what has contributed to the momentum behind some of these communities.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you look at, just step back and you look at the history of the industry, we've moved from a place where it used to be that someone built and launched a game to accelerate hardware to actually the things we do with our hardware and with our platform are all in service of making those games bigger.
Somebody says like, but Xbox doesn't have like the third party IP to really carry them. Yeah. And I mean, we painfully learned that during all the court hearings about what Sony was doing behind the scenes to take those IPs away from Xbox. Right? We painfully heard about that, the way Sony was manipulating this industry. Not even just money hatting, but just like manipulating the industry behind the scenes to take market share away from Xbox and to prevent Xbox from like getting games. They were going in, bro. And that's why effectively Xbox won the court cases, because if Sony didn't do that stuff, well, I mean, potentially we could be in a different situation here.
And we think about that across all of the investments we make, the consoles we build, the investments we do with things like cross-play, cross-progression, the things that we're doing with cloud. How do we actually give more options to game creators so they can have the greatest success? I think one of the fun recent examples about this is actually Power World. You know, Power World was able to launch, they were a game preview, they launched in Game Pass, they also simultaneously launched in Steam. And through the combination of those things, you know, Pocket Pair was able to have this outsized success, and it was the largest third-party Game Pass launch ever. And that's all because we give creators options on how they can launch their games. We've got subscription, we've got retail, we've got free-to-play, we've got game preview, we have the consoles, we have our experience on PC, and they can access all of those things. And when we step back and we just look at the performance of our platform all up, we know it's working. We're at the highest level of users on console, the highest level of users on PC, the highest level of users on cloud ever. We have double-digit growth rate on PC and cloud, places where we're enabling creators to actually reach new players beyond the console ecosystem. And that's why we're leaning into it and doing more, because we see all those signals.
So we're talking about the role that hardware plays for creators, for the games and those communities. What about the role that hardware plays for us as a business, for Xbox?
When we look at our hardware, it really is, and Phil said this earlier, it's where you get like the most flagship seminal experience of Xbox. And it also represents a developer target. Our developers can build the specs of our hardware, and we invest to make sure they know when they do that, that the games are going to run great on our hardware, but they're also going to be able to be accessed across any screen because of all the other investments we make. So we're giving them an easy way to access as many players as possible. And we actually have more creators right now building for Xbox than ever before by nature, thousands of them by nature of those investments. And we got more to come. There's some exciting stuff coming out in hardware that we're going to share this holiday. And we're also invested in the next generation roadmap. roadmap. And what we're really focused on there is delivering the largest technical leap you will have ever seen in a hardware generation, which makes it better for players and better for creators and the visions that they're building.
And then when we're talking about hardware too, there's these
They
other
just announced the next Xbox. They just announced like the probably the mid-generation update to Xbox. All right. I wasn't expecting that here. That's for sure. Has that actually been announced yet? The next Xbox Pro X or the Xbox One X Pro S Series S XXX? Yeah, this is probably the first time they've mentioned that, right? The Xbox 720? Wait a minute. No way we get mid-gen updates? I would close your eyes and ears for this entire year. If you don't think we're getting mid-gen updates, well, number one, she just said it. And, number two, don't pay attention to anything Sony says throughout this entire year. Don't pay attention. It was leaked a while back, right, but we don't talk about leaks.
Considerations that are really important to our community, probably to each one of ourselves as well. When you talk about library, because I want to dig in on that a little bit more. As we talk about cloud in the wider entertainment industry, there's conversations about streaming. How is that impacting how I own my content that I've invested in? So what can we say about our stance around game preservation?
Yeah, one of the highlights for me of being in this position was getting to stand on stage when we announced back compat coming to Xbox One. Like, it was fantastic. People were reading the teleprompter before I could read it. Slow reader, and just feeling the energy in the
backwards compat is still one of the coolest things on Xbox.
One of the cues I think us as being part of Microsoft take is looking at Windows and how Windows over decades has maintained software compatibility with things that are built on it. Like, I can still go back and play some of the games that I love playing on Windows from decades ago, and it will still run. And we try to bring that same view to consoles. It's harder in console because the line between what the hardware is and what the game is in consoles is traditionally, it's tighter, which makes compatibility, you end up doing these generational compatibilities that we've built. But I will say compatibility, the ability to not only play the games, but my saves are still there with our cloud save systems to try to keep the services up as long as we can so that people can play, is a tenet of what we are as Xbox. It's at our foundation. And when we look at future hardware generations and what we're gonna support, making sure that we respect, which is the word I use, respect the investments that people have made in Xbox going forward is fundamental. And the fact that you get entitlements when you buy a game from us on both Windows and Xbox also means you have the ability to play that game across a multitude of devices, which I think furthers the compatibility of the games that you own.
I think them like double dipping like on compatibility. He's not really saying anything beyond it, but like sort of reaffirming that backwards compat is like critical to Xbox. I mean, yes, 100% it is. It is likely the coolest fucking thing about owning a Series X or a Series S, in my opinion, outside of the obvious deal that Games Pass is, but I don't care about that. For me, holy shit, dude, all of my, like, the majority of my 360 games and stuff and my original Xbox games running on that system and looking better is super fucking cool, dude. Not to mention all your Xbox One games and stuff.
Can we go back to what Xbox stands for today? I think we've pretty much covered all of the elements, but if you could break it down for me.
You know, when you play on Xbox, what we're saying is you're playing on a platform where you know the biggest games in the world are always going to be. You're playing on a platform where you get to access Game Pass. And all of the games from our incredible range of studios will always launch in Game Pass day one. And you're playing on a platform that's dedicated to you, like player-first features, cross-play, cross-save, cross-progression, backwards compatibility, being able to play your games in your library anywhere you want because of the investments that we make in cloud gaming. And so you're playing somewhere where you're investing and you know you get to take the games forward with you and across all of the screens where you are. And I think most importantly, Xbox is a place where you know when you're investing in Xbox, you're investing somewhere that is dedicated to making games more successful and creators more successful so that they can invest more to bring even better experiences to you all of the time.
Yeah, just that investment.
Xbox is
in
not
the
going third
studios
party, no.
and we feel
They're
that
not.
as part of first party with the platform proximity. You know, it's kind of amazing now to look out across all the studios that we've got and just be reminded that we're now one of the biggest development organizations in the industry. What does that mean for players? It means that the biggest games are going to continue to come to Xbox. And this 2024, the year coming up, we've got more than 10 major releases coming up. Great stuff. Hellblade 2. We've got Diablo expansion. We've got Avowed, Ara, the Indiana Jones game. And there's more in development, which I think we're going to be able to share more about at our June showcase coming up pretty soon.
Well, I guess I should get
Nice.
ready to work on that show. Well, thank you all for showing up on the podcast.
All right, very cool. What I'm taking from this is that not a ton changed. I was hoping that they were ready to go ham, that this was the moment that it's like happening, where it's like, oh man, Xbox games are just going to start coming out on other systems. It's really happening. Not much changed. It was the only thing that really was announced here, all that extra speak was just reaffirmation of the way Xbox operates, right? It really was. The only like true announcement from this entire thing is that they have 4 titles, one of them likely Hi-Fi Rush and one of them likely, I'd say Sea of Thieves, is going to be coming out on other systems, that they're going to be putting out some of their big first party games on other systems, which is cool. I was hoping this was going to be Xbox like properly going third party, like our games going forward are going to be made for PlayStation, they're going to be made for Switch. That's just the way it is, you know? I was hoping that was going to be the case, but they are still dedicated to hardware. If this is the beginning of that, I would love there to be a situation where you still have like your Game Pass, right? To me, it makes a lot of sense that like, hey, you know, this is coming out on all these systems, but it's also on Game Pass. So now people have the opportunity to buy these things on these other systems, but what happens if you have an Xbox? Well, it's on Game Pass. You know, to me, that makes a lot more sense than trying to do their best just to sell hardware, you know?